So coordinating this midsection is how we're going to kind of get into this pattern today. So welcoming yourself to this experience is where we're going to start with our wall kind of adjacent to the back frame of ourselves. And you're going to have your chair so it's far enough away from the wall that you could easily kind of launch and step to it. So that means actually we're going to step up. Okay, so let's take a belt unbuckled. You want to place that belt so that behind you, you're holding on to the belt. And when you reach a hold, and I kind of elaborate on a few of these specifics today. So this might be interesting journey ahead. But when I hold the belt, I want to keep it pretty mellow for my shoulders. I want you to focus on grasping the belt. Maybe it's behind your tush, so the arms are straight-ish with their natural bend of the elbows. And then you're going to lift up the right foot up to the chair. And so when you feel that bend of the right knee, I want you to, again, the arms are pretty casual here, just holding a belt behind you. As you lift up the ribs, so you're pushing the rib cage forward, can you suggest a sense of arching through the spine moves forwards, but you want that mid-body lift so the upper spine moves in. So if I visualize this, it's as if it's kind of a stride forward inside, from the inside forward. And then gradually, if you need to bring your hands out wider on the belt, do so. Feel what it's like to move your belt behind you. And as it moves back, you want to find where there's symmetry in the ribs. And we'll think of it as equilibrium. It's one of my favorite made-up words, equilibrium. So you're trying to find equilibrium in the ribs, but let's take out getting any difficulties here, adding in the shoulders. So your standing balance is part of this. I want you to feel a little more weight in your right foot than you may start with. So that might mean you slide your foot a little forward on the chair so the knee doesn't go over the ankle. And you might lunge a little bit, but feel when you move your weight down. This might mean the blanket could get slippery, so the mat might be better under your foot, huh? But when you lean forward, feel that left thigh lengthen and lift up the chest so you're lifting up your face and moving your arms back. So give a focal point for just a couple more seconds here. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, now relax your pressure back with your hands, unless you like it, and then head center and lower down the right foot and switch the leg up on the chair immediately so that you can feel kind of that nice release for your left foot to be up now. And if you want to kind of squirm the knee a little bit side to side or flex the foot, that's up to you. But sometimes prim and proper is good to kind of follow the guidelines here. So when the arms move back, prim and proper guidelines. The arms motion behind you. Now I want you to take the hands wide on the belt. So it's like, oh, this is easier on my arms and my shoulders. So they're so wide, right? It's like a wide sash that you're holding behind you. And you're not going to the edges of it, right? That would be a little too much, a little limitless. But when you lean a little bit forward, try to lift up out of the lower band of the belly so that that right quadricep has an ability to be long. And then focus for a moment here when we feel that hold to the belt. You're going to lower your arm pressure down so you have the belt kind of loose right now, but the arms are going to lower down besides you. And then we'll take the belt into the right hand. And what you're going to do is, I'm going to show this by me still standing with my foot on the chair, but you could step down if you want. You're going to hold the belt with the right hand and give yourself a lot of belt, right? So it's dangling from your hand. And as you bring your arm back, kind of notice I have my palm holding the belt. I bring my arm behind me and then feel that right armpit chest lift Careful for shoulders here. So I want you to get a feel of bending your right elbow to get that tricep up, and then reach your left hand maybe back for the belt that's your right hand is holding. Step down from the chair and then turn to your right and kick that belt away so you don't trip on it. But you're going to take a wide stance. If the chair feels too close, just move it a little farther out from the wall. You have a wide stance. And I intended that you have your blocks below you here, but we can move that if it hasn't occurred for you to put them down. But I hold the belt and I want you to stay with this wide stance with the feet, but I'm going to come a little closer so you can see the arms. I want you to get a feel of this left hand walking up onto the belt. So it's creeping up to the right hand, but the right elbow moves back, okay? Maybe you can see some of that, or you already know that. And then as you go into your forward bend, you have your right foot against the base of the wall. Your knees are approaching length. And then as you lower forwards, you're going to keep that pushed out with the heels onto the borders, right? So your feet are parallel with the sides of your mat, and lower down. Pull with your right hand, pull that left hand. Breathe. Now simply come up. So a short time with that, and bring both arms down, roll your shoulders back. Let the arms be pretty limp from holding the belt, just limp arms, shoulder rolls. Now press into your feet, feel that you have this wide stance and that central lift up into the ribs, and take the belt with your left hand, and you're going to swing that belt back behind you, elbow up. Right hand reaches behind, so you're going to reach back with that right hand up to grab the belt with your right hand that the left hand's holding, right? So it's called Gomukhasana. So when we hold on for that tricep lift, you're going to start to lower down, no rush, and feel when this left elbow drops. Feel when it kind of descends with you. And instead of letting it kind of curl in towards the floor, try to keep it reaching a little bit away the whole time. So I use my right hand to pull and my left elbow to go forwards. Right. Why are we doing this, right? This is for the rotator cuff, hydration, for the circulation in the shoulders, but it's even more importantly for the heart and lung meridians, right? So that's a bigger play for this position. So feel where that left elbow pushes forward. And then I want you to come back up and bend the knees and then reach your hands to put that belt behind you one more time. And then come into a forward fold, holding the belt wide behind you, both hands holding it, come into it, and then feel where your feet turn in slightly and your neck relaxes down from the spine. Sitting bones lift, feet press, shoulders back. Now, as we sensitize our feet to the grounding experience, let go of your belt, wherever it drops is fine, and then muster up getting your blocks under your hands. So it might be a little bit messy just to get to that spot, but we'll take our blocks. Your belt could be anywhere at this point, but not on your mat. Take your blocks so that they are below your hands, but press forward so you're in a wide downward dog. So that would require us to feel the arch from the wrist to the armpit, and the hands are in a wide stance as well, a little wider than shoulder width perhaps for some of us. And then as you close in on the pose, feel how your hips push back. right? Any kind of a dog pose, it's sitting bones push back. So as my head is between the arms, feel your head nod side to side and be here with that sense of the sitting bones and the arms fully reaching. And as you let your eyes close, scan the body as if this is kind of your beginning still pose, right? It's a pose where you can resonate with your eyes relaxing, center in and scan the body and get rooted. So give a few moments here where you're centering back into your heels. Belly moves with the breath. Now, as you come forward, take a little balance work here. So feel where your weight is presented to your hands, maybe almost not quite as equally as on your feet, right? They seem to be your balance points, but feel when your weight moves a little forward into your hands and how you balance the sitting bones moving back. So can you pull the thigh muscles up as if you have to tone the legs, so you're lifting up the above the kneecaps, the muscle above the kneecaps is trying to pull up. And do you do that just by stretching your hamstrings, or can you actually kind of get a little tug on those muscles? Okay. So it's an interesting work to feel that when you're in a forward bend, to try to work with that. So what I'm going to encourage you to do when you walk the blocks back to your mat is bend your knees, because that's going to bulk up the quads right away. And then bring your hands over to your chair, turn to your left foot has to turn immediately under the chair seat. And then we're going to pivot. And what we'll do is a couple balancing patterns so that the hands are onto that seat. But let's lengthen that left leg. And so lengthen doesn't have to be straight, but you're working towards elongating the thigh tissue. And as you press to the right heel at the base of the wall, you want the chair in proportion distant from the wall so that you can actually feel pretty certain about its help, right? So it's your help. Chair is the help right now for our posture, right? It's our main prop for this class. So when you're reaching with your rib cage, take the hands up on the back bar of the chair and feel if your feet are in a stance so they're on two different tracks. Feel a mild bend of that left knee so that your left quadricep is, it's a little more muscly all the way through the glute, right? That's kind of muscling to co-balance around the left knee, okay? So notice how the right leg strikes back, right? How the back of the knee is kind of fully open. Okay, now we're going to come up with our arms. So you're going to push into your right heel behind you to help find that balance. And when you lift up, I want you to focus here on pressing down into that right heel. You might find a little bit of shakiness to get here. If you need to bring your left foot to step a little wider, that's fine. Just don't turn the foot out, right? So wiggling asana. And then lift up the arms like you're really focusing on getting your core to lift. Feel that back arch. So it's a back bend. And then I want you to let your left knee be bending a bit more. And maybe let the right knee bend so you can move the tail in and stretch to this right front thigh, right? So it's going to be length, not necessarily can you pull your quadricep up, because if you try that on the right leg, what'll happen is your glute will not pop, but that's the muscle that will kind of ping is your glute, which gets confusing. So open out the arms. Hopefully you'll get to the chair at some point soon. Bring your hands on the sides and then step the left foot back and reach your ribs forwards to a chair up dog. Be sure your chair is stable. And part of that stability is that your feet are against the wall, right? My heels are up at the wall, so I can feel the balls of the feet on the floor, the heels touch back, and then my waist stretches. Now, if you don't like to have the knees off the floor and you want to stretch the front with your knees on the ground, you could. Some people's knees feel fine doing that, but I'm showing it with a little bit more of the arch through the spine. But if you want to come down to a kneeling stretch for the front, you can put the knees on the ground and then reach your head up and your hips a little forward. So there's a couple options to sustain it. Now, when we come back and center, I want you to step the right foot under the chair, and then the left heel is at the base of the wall, all the way down. Look at your legs so that there is a little separation so they're not in one track. And then we'll put our hands on the back, upper part of the chair, and work towards reaching like your heart, right? I mean, having these muscle parts as our focus might have a little bit of a challenge for us in the long term, right? Trying to work with just muscling into it. So maybe consider the organs and how there is that possibility of kind of thinking about your heart reaching forward, your lungs. Mindy is considering that lemon water there. I don't know if she'll go for it. Okay, so you'll feel your hip on that right side reaching back and levelizing the hips. Now, when we come up, you got to bend your right knee. That's important to get a little bit of kind of juice to get going. It's kind of like the glucose for the body to get going is to have a little bit of sensation circling around the knee, right? So when you bend it, you can start to recruit the upper legs. So when you push, you're going to lift up. And then I want you to work your way towards lengthening that left front leg, right? Just from the knee up, right? So you're going to feel it from the knee up when you reach and your torso lengthens. So keep going with that lift. And then as you encourage that movement and that reach through the torso, feel, where are we at? We got our right leg forward, get it together. Okay, so get a feel here for that lift through the rib cage. And then as you're moving your arms back and back, maybe you get towards the wall, maybe your thumb touches, but emphasize here going back to a little straighter front leg so that you can work with that wave of stretch through the core body. Be careful of your low back muscles, right? So if it pings in the low back and you kind of feel that it's getting kind of indented, then your work is to try to lift a little bit more. Lift a little bit more, mid rib cage moving up. Okay, and then as we come back forwards, we're going to have the hands hold the side, and this time we're going to step back, come into that up dog variation. So we still have that lift, but it's those double leg pattern, right? So they're both behind you. Try to maintain it for a few more and feel where the centerpiece of the body expands out from. So it's not just that the stomach is at the navel, but it's almost like when you spread the navel energetically out, you'll feel the bands of the lower belly. And that's an important, kind of a critical area to feel that you can get space in. I think lower belly, maybe not, maybe. So when we're here in this position, what I want us to work with is stepping the left foot forward once again. Feel how from your back, it's like a relief to bend a knee, right? To bend and to relieve the back. And then as that right heel presses down, you're going to keep that length into the left leg this time. Press, okay? And then pivot the right foot. So the outer band from the, well, not a band, but the little toe to the heel is on against the wall. And then start to come into Trikonasana, right? Triangle pose. So the right arm reaches up and you certainly use the chair under your left hand. Yeah, and if for any reason you find that you're kind of wanting to let the hand go a little lower on that left side, you could pause here and maybe put your elbow on the chair so you get a little more stretch in your side. But I would try to stay with these elementary boundaries here, that this left side from my hip to my ribs to my armpit, chest. I'm trying to get that area to turn and spiral towards the ceiling. Armpit, chest. Yeah, it's only something you talk about in your yoga experience, your armpit, chest. Send the right arm over the side of the face. Come down with your gaze and your spine and your neck and head as your hand comes to the chair. We keep the legs exactly the same, positionally back behind us. But I want you to just notice here when you pivot your back foot so the heel is either a little bit up or at the base of the wall, if your calf can tolerate that. When you take revolved triangle, so it's the opposite of that triangle pose you were just in, you're going to turn into the left leg versus away from it. So the right hand is on the seat, and you might cup your hand, or you could say spider the fingers, so that the palm is up and you're not pushing into your wrist. And then you lift the left arm and come up. Now, if the right hand on the chair is fine for you, take that position. And if it doesn't work for you, you can put your elbow on the chair and lift the left arm here. Rely on your back foot to try to stay pressing down, and the energy runs all the way from that right foot through the hip and then spirals through the pelvic upper space, right? Upper rim, turn to the left and then reach the left arm up. Yeah, so stay with this revolved triangle. Give it some time. Left hand is on the back, so it's either holding your hip or it's resting behind you. And give a little time to notice this left leg that you're pressing into the heel and the energy up the thigh, and then that tone across the left buttock and then around into the sacrum and the SI joint, right? So it's a fairly healthy shape as long as you're maintaining the balance wave through the inner thigh right up into the pelvic floor. So continue and breathe. How about continue to breathe? Feel the core rotation. And now as you come back to center, we're going to take a pause here for a moment between the sides. So I want you to feel the hips both move back. Left foot steps back. Feet step out a little wider than hips distance. Chair dog. So as you lean back, you're going to push into the heels of your hands and reach the seat back to the wall. If you need to walk away from the wall to get your seat to get near, then do so that your seat is touching the wall space. So what happens is the back can soften forward from the connection at the sitting bones. So it's completely fine if you decide you want more stretch right now. And for instance, you want to bring your hands down to the floor. If that is available for your circulation, then you take that position so that the back muscles can relieve. And let go. Head down. Good. So let's take the knees into a little more bending, depending on how you've descended in your arms. Come back up to the chair. And we all meet at the chair height with the hands. And then as we bend through the knees, you're going to scoot your toes and heels closer to each other. And then let's take a step forward with that right foot under the chair seat. Left heel turns back so the outside of the left foot is against the wall. And then step the right foot under the chair. I know it's already under the chair anyhow, but feel how you step, and then what happens with your right knee. So I want you to try to get the inside leg muscles to almost kind of have that inner lift. So as you pivot your waist to the left, feel that left arm move up and rotate. Now, if my hand is too splayed out in front, I might spider the fingers so that I'm not relying so deeply into the chair. But in triangle pose now, turning to your left, come into the shape, feel that left arm lift, and then try to get your ribs to turn without that rotation, that inner rotation of the right knee. So if you twist to the left and your right knee is turning in, I want you to really press into that right heel and feel the balance from your right sitting bone down into your thigh, streaming to balance. So it's likely a bit of study. This is like the study class of the week where you have to study your muscles and connection around the bones, huh? Oh, it has its fun too, because at least you get to know yourself a bit. Your balancing challenges. Now, if you sway back with your arm, right, you can feel that your heel will support you. But if you reach that left arm over the side of your face and then turn your ribs at your own pace down, your ribs and your face turn down. And then we're going to switch the back foot. So the heel is reaching back to the wall. The foot is parallel now, and the heel is grounding down. The foot on that front zone, they're all parallel at this point. You're kind of parallel with your back and front paws, okay? So feel where your core connects, or if your lower belly is just kind of sitting there without much intuition in the position. So find if you can get some kind of position intuition to twist. So my left hand stays on the chair, or I cup the hand and then I turn to the right, and then try to feel that rotation. My right hand could go to my back in the beginning or come up at any time, but play this pattern. So if you feel like you need to come back down or come down to your elbow, then do so, but it's this kind of belly rotation that we're seeking so that it's fuller than just like a leg piece, right? It's more than a leg, a standing pose. It's a twist. So come into this rotation with that arm either behind you or reaching. Either's fine, right? And push into the inner right foot and deep rotation. Right, subtle, but very therapeutic here. I wouldn't call this one subtle. I like to turn so I look down to my chair, but I'm certainly committed to the chair. Yeah, I'm assuming this is warming you up. It's a fairly warm leg and core pose. Right hand to the back if you haven't found that yet. Okay, so let's take it so that when we turn our waist down, yeah, some of us, the left arm is straight, some elbows are bending, but when we turn, we're going to lower both hands down and then carefully guide so that your hips, especially that right leg that's forward, kind of feels its step. So I'd be so cautious in your back here. Feel when you bend your right knee. So maybe touches to the chair seat a little bit. You're going to carefully step your left foot forwards, just so you're off of the wall right now with your foot. And then bring your hands to the bar. This is all very elementary stages to get here. Hands back to your hips, and then take a step up with that right foot on the chair. So the foot you just had under goes up. Okay, so be aware of how the knee angles. If it's over the toes, then you're too far in the lunge. You want to find where the weight proportion really starts to sync up with that left foot again. Okay. So let's take it so that when we're moving our ribs forwards, like when we started with a little of the sensitivity in our rib cage. Feel how the ribs are moving forward out of the back. And then let's move the left hand to that right leg. And then when you turn to your right this time, you're going to bring your right hand back. Maybe it touches the wall a tiny bit. Doesn't have to forcefully push, but you feel a little bit more of that upper rib lift. So I want you just to take kind of a snapshot of this in your, not only your muscles right now, but the structural shape. Okay, now bring the right hand back to the right leg, to the hips, you hold, and then change, right foot down, left foot steps up. This side is kind of feels fresh because it wasn't already just previously being sunk into. But when you are stepping up onto the chair with this left foot, notice the goods, right? Notice the ribs, notice the hip, balance into the heel. Bring the right hand across to the left knee, and then can you turn your waist as you rotate, or do you just use your bones to kind of present like you're doing it, right? So consider the core. I mean, what's left at the end of the day sometimes is how do you feel? How does your core feel, right? It might feel kind of slumpy. So we're working with that idea of getting a more inner lift. So when the left hand comes back to the wall, I can work with pressing, but also feel that spinal spiral. Yes, you can do this kind of work with something you've probably done before where you lean with your elbow and you charge the pose a little bit more, but we're working on kind of the basic fine tuning the fibers and letting those kind of larger pieces spread out, assuming that that's really advanced for us right now. Let's just assume the simple. Assume simplicity. Taking this for a few more breaths. Remember, breathing is helpful. Come back to the layer of in and out breath. Slow but trainable. The sounds that come out when you twist. Okay, so now when we come back center, you're going to lower down this left foot and then take a real change here. We're going to change this up big time with our chair. So you're going to take your chair, turn it so the seat is facing away, and have a blanket on the back rest, the back bar of the chair. Okay, place it over the chair, the back bar. Now, this is going to be something, I've been practicing this for quite a while, off and on, and I find it really helpful for my balance. And so I want us to kind of get some of these ripening poses to help us with Warrior 3, Half Moon as well. And so we're going to add this in today, and then we'll kind of get into some basic driven shapes that you're used to, whatever that means. Okay, so my distance from the wall is going to be, if I step and my right arm, let's say, because I think that'll be our beginner spot, is in a slight bend, but the arm is straight. Now, we're all different with our measurement for Half Moon a little bit, but I want you to find that your arm is pretty much almost straight. Some people teach this from fingertip. This is a little bit longer, but I like a little more challenging. So you can be this distance from the wall, or you can step a little farther out and be finger distance, but that's your chair would be right next to your hip, okay? So again, you can always move your chair farther out. So we'll give this a try. It might be challenging. Okay, I'm in for it, huh? All right, so I've got my chair. I'm standing right next to it. The seat is on the other side. But when you're leaning forward, let's say you're tall, you're gonna put 2 blankets on the back rest of the chair. 2 blankets. So if you're tall and you find when you lean forward, you don't get a lot of support, you need to bring more blankets up on the chair. So you're going to take a step of about hips distance, not any wider for sure. And when you come forward to lean, I want you to feel how the heels press down, and then you're going to hinge at your hips, but take the care that when you lean forward, you have almost no big bending in your knees. So you're going to bring your hands down onto the seat of the chair. This is some pretty simple balance work. And then Lift the right leg up so that right foot is at the wall, right? So your distancing could change. You might go, I don't like that. I want to be farther. That's okay. You can push your chair farther away. So when that right foot is up, this limits you so you don't get your leg like all the way up the wall. That's not our goal. It's how lifted we can be with our foot. But you're targeting, practice right now is your low back support. So when you feel that right foot at the wall, I want you to try to bring your left arm forwards. Yeah, so try to push into the wall. Now I know having both arms forward could be a little bit unsure of yourself with that idea. So we're gonna stay with the one. If you've got to try the two, I guess you could try it, but I will tell you, if you need to try the two arms because you want to try, you really have to bend your left knee. But it's a little bit of a risk, right, with your chair buckling. So I work with the one. Okay, now lower that left hand down and change sides. Right foot down, give that leg a break, the other leg a break from holding you up. And step the left foot up and change sides. Right arm goes forwards, left leg goes back. Take it anytime that you are ready. Of course, these poses are taught with the hands reaching all the way to the floor for forward bend, but that's a little intense flexibility. So I'm working on some neutral work. So feel when the arm goes forward, what occurs in your back muscles. And then when your hand goes down, when you feel ready for that, we're going kind of a little backwards on the side, going with the leg up at the end without the arm up. Just feel how your back is arching. Now, if you have a really deep arch in your back, but you feel that this low back is pressurized and tightening, then you'll want a second blanket on your chair back, right? I don't want you to feel a little dent there. If you're short, you probably don't need that. It's probably enough, or you don't even need a blanket. So lower the left foot. Take a moment here where your feet span out as wide as the feet of the chair. And then you're going to lower down your elbows and then get a feel for your back to stretch for a few moments here. Feel where your spine stretches so you're almost in cat pose. Okay, but your back is stretching because the belly is onto the chair backing. Okay, now you're going to look back to your knees, see where the legs are, and step the left foot in center, and then bring that right foot up at the wall and turn that foot out. Okay? So now if your chair feels unusually close, too close to your hips, you can always change it now, which would mean I put my foot back down, I walk my hands on the chair seat, and I just kind of push my chair like an inch forward so I feel a little bit more space. You could do that, but the right foot comes up, and then you're going to turn to half moon. So your right elbow is on the chair seat. This is important that your elbow is down. You're trying to get this sideways to lengthen, this left side, and then the right arm to go up. Okay? So something that looks good, Cynthia. So have the distancing with your right hip to foot so that it's not too high with this right leg, right? We're not trying to hike up the leg, but we want to have connection between the hip bone and the heel bone to boost up that density in the hip. So this should be a big hip density pose right here with the chair holding you so you can be in it for a good minute. You can maintain this looking down to your arm, down to the floor with the neck release, and be with that. Be careful on the neck here. So of course you could do half moon with your left arm straight, but we're trying to work with something where the core is involved with the turn to the right side. Be sure your left knee isn't turning in, so keep a little micro bend of the left knee so you can feel all the way through that left hamstring. It's like a zipper up the back of a leg. Definitely feel it. And right arm behind your back. If you can bring your right hand behind your back and it touches the chair or the blanket, that's good. So noticing that wrap in the shoulder. Woo. Feel the left hip a little bit, and then take your right hand down And then take a moment between the sides to step and stand up. So, arms up, reach back. Okay, try to touch your body to your chair so you know that there's a limit here. Otherwise, you kind of barrel into it. So feel your arms reach up and back. Your head could be looking between the arms, eyes closed, or you could be head lifting up. Okay, now we're going to keep it forward with the arms. So drive your arms back forward, and then hands maybe on the ribs or at the bar of the chair is great. And then as you tilt, take a stance with your feet so they're hips distance. And then as you tilt forward, notice how you kind of round into the chair. So I want you to put your hands down and then feel that reach back to your sitting bones. Okay, like cat, right? Round your back like cat pose and bring your elbows down. Take a moment here to feel. And then step that right foot in center and lift the left foot up at the wall. It could feel different on the second side. Immediately you can notice, wow, this leg feels like it needs to be closer to the wall, or what's going on. Maybe you're perfect. But I find these real specific alignment pose shapes with the chair are almost funny to notice the little tiny differences you might detect, subtle stuff. So use your basic alignment cues here. You're going to pivot so that right elbow is on the chair. Now, if I turn my right hand to be on my left hand right now, so I pivot my arm so my forearm is on the chair, and then I turn my left foot, turn it out, right? So your arm has to turn, your foot has to turn. And then when you pivot, you can move your hip in so the inner thigh moves towards the left, right? So you can actually gain some balance. Assuming this is going to be challenging for all of us here, this isn't a walk in the park really. You want to work with pushing into the left foot as much as the right foot has to take all the work. So it's probably never an issue here that you're pitching down into that right knee. So you might have to step that right foot a little farther under the chair. You might have to bend your right knee a little bit further just to keep the tail in and the ribs rotating. And the inner right thigh is steeped in the position. So really steep your inner leg deeply. It's a pretty steeped pose for the thigh muscles. Good job. Keep the left arm either up or behind your back. You might reach the chair with your left hand. That's kind of fun. Yeah, anything with some balance experience. Now, careful to soften the right knee so you're not hyperextending at all. Lift up the left arm. And now when you have this opportunity to pivot, be very cautious in your sacroiliac joint here. So you're going to feel your buttock muscles want to just kind of swing around to take you out. So bend your right knee a little bit more, bring the left hand down, and then, not till then, start to turn your ribs down towards the chair so the belly button faces down, and switcheroo. So hands are onto the seat. Press back into your left foot. And then as you start to bring your body down with your left foot to the floor, scoop in and then bring your hands to the back bar of the chair, knees bend, and come up into chair pose. You're holding a chair. You're going to pretend you're a chair pose too. And then you're going to bring your arms forward and feel how your knees bend, and be very careful here on how much you're creasing at the knee. Don't focus on how deep a squat you're going to do. That's not at all what I want you to do. I want you to feel the hinge at the hips, and that stomach musculature is really trying to move back towards your seat. So let that be the focus. Okay, and then step your feet together, interlace your fingers, and push your palms forwards. Keep it so they're still bent in the knees. It does not have to be a deep squat at all. I want you to be protective of your knees. That's the most important piece. Good. And then as you lift up, put the thighs so they're close together, really close legs, like they're completely zipped up from the big toe, maybe the heel has spaces. And then bring your arms up besides you, hands maybe together, roots of the fingers, interlacing palms towards the ceiling. Try to find it where it's a lift, but it's not too exuberant. Reduced exuberance. And then let your hands relax their grip and then flow the arms down. Okay. Stand in your simple upright shape. And then let your eyes be open. Maybe you're looking at the screen. And I want you to take the chair so that the blanket is off of the chair now. You can toss it away. And then turn your chair seat to the wall. We've done quite a bit so far, huh? I don't want to get too lost in my scene here. Okay, make sure I got this. So what I want us to do here, this is where we're going to do a little bit of this focus for our seat hips. Keep it real simplified. When you sit to the chair, have your bolster. Why not do this? We'll put our bolster down, kind of think of it here, so that you're in Baddha Konasana. Your bolster's right center from the underside of the chair. Just put the bolster so it's vertical from the wall. And you're sitting on your chair with your seat towards the chair seat towards the wall, knees open, feet together, Baddha Konasana. And then the knees are out. Okay. Now, when you're sitting upright here, can you place your hands so that they're holding the chair? And I know that you have different places on the chair you could reach. So kind of feel the chair a bit. Kind of notice, okay, I can lean forward. I can put my feet a little farther forward and hold a little higher on the back of the chair. Okay, if that is priming some helpful circulation in your shoulders, go with that. If it's a little grippy in areas of the neck you're not so happy to do, then have your hands a little farther down on the side and sit tall. Now, the challenge with either of these is what's going on in your stomach zone. So, right, it tends to kind of not be a part of the experience. You're focusing on these levers. So what I want us to do is still get a hold of the chair. However you're going to do it, you might be a little higher, you might be lower. I'm going to go kind of very basic right in between. And I want you to bring your knees, so they're going to move a little farther away from you regardless. Your ankles have to deeply stretch to do that. Okay, now slide your feet closer, not so much it hurts your knees, but slide them a little closer in, and then bring them back out. Now, continue this. This is working with motion, right? The knee joint, the ankles like this, movement. So cycle that motion through the ankle and the knee and then the core. And when you're moving your feet forward, I want you to use that lower belly space to help you pull back in and hold onto that chair firm with your upper back, shoulders pressing back to help you as you slide your feet in. And last time you go forward with your feet, you're going to bring your hands up to your legs and then lean forward and try to touch to the wall. So you have a little bit farther reach. When you're touching the wall, can you round your back, chin towards the chest, feel that cat spine, and then lean a little farther forward. Right, feel the depth, and your feet are far enough away that it is stretching into your ankles. Okay, now hands come down, so they're about shoulder, well, they're just lower than up to your head, right? They're simply forward from your shoulder parts, so that when you push back to the straight arms, can you bring your arms open for balance? And then as you come back up, sitting tall in your chair, you're going to bring your feet from the side. So your feet step to the sides of the bolster. And then lift the left foot and cross it to the right knee. Left knee is open. Now, just for conditions of ankles and knees, I'm going to kind of shove my bolster over to the left with my foot. You can also pick up your bolster and put it on the side. You don't have to have it on your mat. But when you lean forward, feel how this right foot below is helping you kind of calibrate where that left knee is to go, right? So my left knee is trying to lower down, and I'm going to keep a hold of my chair. I'm going to bring my hands much higher up on the back of the chair and sink a little bit forward and down. So feel that rhythm in your hip and feel where your left foot is pretty relaxed. So we're not spinning the foot around, we're keeping it still. You can touch the wall with your hands if that feels good. It's up to you. You've had a decent amount of standing poses, so you might either hands back or hands at the wall. This might feel a little bit deeper when your hands go to the wall. So try the options and sink in for a few minutes here. Breathe. Yeah, think of the breath as a hydrating, kind of elusive material wise to what you notice it as, since it's invisible. But notice that it kind of juices things up. There's movement that comes from that continuous pace of breath internally. Now we're going to simply switch sides. So we take that left foot down and we switch. We take it simple. Right foot up and crossing, hold on to the back, lean forwards. So manage the motion of your hip and get a feel here when you're leaning down. If the hands to the wall was contributing to the whole package of the position and kind of feeling the intensity, but noticing if intensity is actually going to generate healing in these areas. So if you kind of feel the drive to push a little farther, and notice if you can carry the breath into that deepening sensation, or if it's difficult. So I'm assuming this is most essential in your hip, maybe your back, your glutes, your legs, right? You might feel it deep on that top leg. Now let it go all the way through the back. So uncross, step your feet as wide as your mat, kind of scoot your legs out on the chair so that you have a little more full support of your chair. And then watch out for your head at the wall though, right? You don't want to hit your head at the wall. So when you lower down, you're going to bring your hands to either the legs of the chair, head down, elbows bend. If this is pretty easy for you to do to get your body into this wide stance, sleeping tortoise pose, you could put a block under your head so you feel a little bit more supported, right? A block or a bolster. And you don't have to have anything under it, not required. But let the sides of the torso, right, the organs get a little bit of massage. So you want to feel when you're still in this forward bend, the side of the waistline, that deeper side layer is getting a little bit of kind of juicing, a little bit of squishing because of the leg attachment and that touch. So that's simply helpful here for the position to be more organ based, a little more yin. Now, as we come into this forward motion, we're going to prepare to come down to a seated frame of practice in just a few seconds. So notice where the weight of your head is if it's on something. And then you want to carefully move your hands to either your legs or the floor. And then I position, so I move my block, and then I'm going to come down to sit. So I want you to take this transition to be mindful. So what I like, sometimes I like a blanket when I come down to sit on the floor. So I'm going to get a hold of one before, and then position the blanket just below. And then when I come down to a seat, I got my blankie. And then I'm going to move my chair distant from my body, a little bit farther out on my mat. What I want you to do is, if you have a blanket seat and you choose that, you don't have to sit on the blanket. It's not required for this. But I just have my blanket horizontally on my mat. It's not any surprise blanket folding here. But what you'll have is your right knee bending and your left leg under the chair. And then that right foot is close to the left leg, but by no means does it have to be touching. Okay, so take the time to kind of get a feel for this knee out. The blanket could be helpful underneath that leg, but not required. If you like to practice kind of that pattern where your knee is on the ground, what you have to do is move your blanket a little bit back, right, to get your knee lower. But I'm not a big proponent of that nowadays. I like to have a little buoyancy, so I would use the ball and have a little extra support. So I add a sandbag to the top thigh on that right leg. And then I have my chair, and I'm going to lean into it and let that waist, lots of space from the chair to my body, right, so that I have some place to kind of gain movement. And the chair for me feels actually a little bit high. So I'm going to have to work with a little more lift in my rib cage, more than I'm used to, and maybe move my arm in on the chair versus back. So some of you are going to be able to hold the back of the chair, right? You're going to be able to reach for it somehow. And many of us are going to find that's not going to be happening in this incarnation here for this pose. So you could add a belt, you could do things to get that, but, or, you know, people will grab the chair and grab a hold and kind of yank through. But finding this left arm to stretch, I think, is pretty interesting. Like the back of the arm, like when we started with these arm poses, this is sort of similar stuff. Just put my arm on a chair, head in my hand, simple, or head not in my hand. So the right arm is behind you, and let the left foot flex. So if the toes are up, that is wonderful. Yeah, and feel how the conditions of your shape are boosting the circulation in your core body around the vine of the spine, but then that influences how it radiates into the vital organs. Right, in towards the liver, away from the spleen, right? So you have all these organs that have this base support. Of course, you could get very flamboyant in the pose and bring your arm over and be fancy. You could do that. And you certainly can work with the simplicity of the structural shift internally, like where you just came from sitting on a chair. You're different now. And as you feel that reach of the ribs, breathe. Notice the exhalations. Stay with this shape for those of us that want to stay with the side body long. Those side sagers that like that pose might stay with this shape. And then some of us will come up and we'll take a bit of a twist. So we'll bring the left hand to the right knee and the right hand back to the wall. And turn the right hand at the wall so the thumb faces up, the fingers point back, And the importance here is to rotate from the, well, you know, the core would be the word I'd say, but be aware that the core is the challenging place to turn from because the shoulder tends to do all the hard work. So see if you can use that left hand on the knee or the thigh just above the knee to support the rotation, and then push from the left foot, right? You don't want to forget that weave of connectivity from the left foot through the leg into the core. This doesn't have to be a arduous, difficult twist, right? It could be a subtle and yet pretty deep, pretty therapeutic rotation. So with that turn, feel the shoulder, feel the ribs, oh, and the belly. There's a belly. And then we come away and we turn to the chair. And then we take our left knee to bending. And I want you to take a pose, seated cross-legged pose, simple pose, or easy pose, Sukhasana. Left foot is crossed in front of right like you've been in before. Just get rid of that sand because it's probably not going to help your knee. And you're going to center yourself so that left foot is in front, as I mentioned. You could put a block under each knee if you like support. I think I still like that ball. And then put the sand on the left leg this time and take a forward fold. We'll take just about a 30-second one, so it won't be long, so don't get too sleepy in it. But get a feel of the cross fibers of the leg. And more important here, the fibers here of the upper leg, right? So if you need to bring your chair farther forward because you don't really feel that leg sensation, then you go farther forwards. But we want to keep our sitting bones down. So if you kind of tilt it off your seat, then you just aren't ready for that. It's okay. You might as well work through this in a lifetime. At some point, you might go back to the beginning of it. Okay, now as we come back up, we have the left leg ready to go. So we're gonna slide the right leg under the chair, turn to our left, right? So my right leg is straight forward and under. I'm gonna keep my chair about the same. I can see the dents on my mat, so I kind of know where it was. Well, this worked out. I had a bolster over here to put my knee on, so that's pretty great. So you can work with your props. As you go in, I want you to feel how you're turned to your left, how the back ribs have like this V shape, right? Your back, right? When you look at the back, you look at the lats, right? It has this span. It's all kind of like that upper body, and then you got the pelvis, and then have these wings. So you're going to reach your right wing to the chair. And then feel that left arm behind you. There's no requirement to get your arm up, but if it feels pretty good, to just sample that reach. If you're kind of edging for more and you want to get the bar of the chair, you could play with that. You could bring your chair closer to you and let the elbow have a proper position of balance. And if you do get the bar of the chair and you get your chair close and you like that reach, it does feel kind of nice to have that completion. But sometimes completion really feels like it's this searching in within that you're kind of exploring through the patterns. So just kind of play with that. Play with the turn of the ribs. Play with that reach of the waist. Let the body lean down into the arm and breathe. Feel the twist. It is a bit of a twist, isn't it? It's a side bend and a twist in one. Now, as you come up, you're going to bring the left hand back to the wall. See, they're all branched together. And then that right hand is to the left knee and you turn the waist. So come into this for a moment where you really do feel that rotation, but it starts with that lower abdominal sensation that leans down and reaches to your sitting bone, right? So you want to keep that right foot flexed. So nothing is left out of the support. The options are to get support from your extremities here. So take a few more of those rotated moments. Feel the turn through the waist. Feel the rib cage, left shoulder reaches around as if it's trying to hug to your spine. And then unwind carefully, kindly. Turn to your chair. Bring your right knee to bending, and then take your sandbag from left thigh to right thigh. Sukhasana. So the right foot is forward to the left shin, and then we come into that forward bend. So I want you to walk your hands forwards. The chair is excellent for these poses. I know we've done these many times with reaching to the floor or the blocks or a bolster, but this is like two bolsters. So use that to kind of liberate the rib cage, the upper back. It's just so much more bulk that you can move through when you have this large object that you can balance your shape to lift up towards, right? So when you're going forward, you can move your chair away. There's all kinds of versions of this, right? Where you can put your hands into a cross and then your head is resting into your wrist or your hands. Some will bring your head all the way down to the chair. It just depends on what feels okay for your neck. So take a few moments with your version of choice. Head down on arms or seat, or hold the bar of the chair and let your head center. But get a feel where your hips are centering, that it's a focus on that right hip. And now as you're feeling that leaning position, feel the sitting bones balance. Reach out of the torso. Breathe. And now as you come back up from center, get a feeling of lifting up through the mid-body. We're going to go into bridge pose. So you could use the chair seat if you want to put your feet on that. That's one option. I like the wall because I'm at it, so I'm going to use it. So we're going to take our chair away for good, unless you're going to do shoulder stand. And we're going to take the body, unless you want to put your feet on, that's another way. But we're going to take our body so we turn around and our feet are going to be up at the wall. So I want you to have your blocks to the side. You don't need these, I don't think. I think some of you have a ball, so we'll use that. And you need your belt too. So put your feet up at the wall and have a blanket behind you but not under your head. We'll do it prim and proper today, just like it's meant to be for the vertebral column. So take the feet so they have spacing. And when you feel the space of the hips distancing as you know it, you're going to grab your belt. And I want you to put that belt so it's wrapping to the lower thighs, right? Just above the knees. So, and you might not really think of that as a thigh piece, right? Above the knee. But of course, there is some connectivity all the way through. Nothing's really left out here. This fascial kind of weave. But I want you to push out into the belt like, I push out into my belt. My legs are about hips distance and tailbone centers down. Now, when you push into your feet, I want you to push down, actually to your pelvis, the back of your pelvis. Feel that natural arch in the spine. And then you're going to reach the tailbone towards the wall and you're pushing out into your belt. I should feel like, oh, pushing out the belt. My glutes are kind of warm. Now, when you lift up your hips, your arms are down below your hips. They're down towards the wall. You're going to lift up your hips, lift up your hips. Now, walk your feet up a little bit at the wall so it does feel like it's a little bit of a shoulder standish experience, shoulder standish. Okay, so the legs are really pushing out into the belt now. Now, shoulders back, no blanket under brains, blanket free. Now, pushing into your feet, take more energy into your legs than you did before. Take more energy than you really thought you could into your legs. Now, when the thighs are having that lift up, I want you to maintain that. Keep the palms open if they have kind of not known where to go yet. Keep the palms open, shoulders down, palms open. So some experience in your shoulders. Now, if your hips are having trouble staying up, you can use your hands to hold around the back line of the hips. So that whole kind of, you might think of this as the pelvic brain, right? The back of it, kind of the cranial space of the pelvis where you touch your thumbs at the back. So it's kind of it is kind of the eyebrows of the buttocks, isn't it? Where the thumbs can reach around to that back, the buttock line. Yeah, it comes back to that one pose we do with the belt, Baddha Konasana, with the belt around that spot. So keep it in focus now here. The hips are up. My hands help incredibly to keep the balance of my legs. Now, notice how much you might put weight in your hands to do this. And I want you to push into your feet and lift up the hips. So now the chest comes towards the chin a little bit. Okay? Now bring your hands together, interlace your fingers so the hands are reaching to the floor. Interlace the fingers. The palms are open. Roll the shoulders down and in. Be super careful here for your feet pushing into the walls. So support your back so it doesn't take all of it. And then you're going to release that grip and take a block or a ball. If you have a ball, grab a ball. If you're scrambling, then carefully come down and come back up carefully. And then use that ball or block. You're going to aim that so you know where your sacrum is. You can kind of touch up to the sacrum with the ball. Put it on the floor. And then line that sacrum onto the ball. So you're going to sink down into the ball. Really sink. Sink, sink, sink. Sink a little bit more until you feel like, oh, okay, that ball is supporting my sacrum. So it's at the base of the spine, right? Right? You're going to feel that triangular bone, right? That the sacrum is, that the ball is right underneath. So it's a circle under a triangle. Pretty much, isn't it? All right, so get a feel of just sinking into that for a moment. Breathe. Keep your belt on. Okay, now as you start to shift your weight into your arms one more time, you're going to bring your arms down. Your palms are down this time. And scoot your feet a little farther down the wall so you're in a very clear bridge pose option now. Push out into the belt. This is key. Push out into the belt with the legs. Tail under and then slide the ball away and lower the spine down comfortably. Okay. Unbuckle. Okay. Get the belt off of the leg. Keep it nearby. We'll use it one more time. Slide your blanket under your head. And then take the ball underneath the right glute, right? So right buttock, eyebrow of the right buttock, and then massage around that glute. So you're going to go a little side to side, but truly squish the ball to massage that glute. Really squish that ball. I hope everybody has one of these balls. I think this group does. Pretty sure. Okay, so massaging through that right glute. If you don't have one of the grippy balls, you can use, if you have a therapy ball that you do self-massage with, there's so many out there. You gotta have something around that could be useful for that. Okay, so feel when you're pushing into that root glute, and then change the ball, push into your feet, lift the hips, and then change the ball to the left glute, massaging through that area. Okay, I want you to try to let the body weight push into the ball and get motion, right, to stretch into it. So a few more moments. So calculate what in your body could use kind of one more swing through circulation. It's likely going to be this low back area. So we want to keep it very peacefully releasing right now. So when you keep that ball to that glute, you might want to stay with it and really massage a little to the lateral rotator of that outer left hip bone. And then you can either stay with massaging or take the ball away and lower your spine entirely. And then you're going to bring that right leg over the left leg and swing the knees to the left. And you could put your bolster under your legs on the left side to stretch into your right hip. If you decide, no, I'm good here, I don't need any more props, you can stay with this. So we're trying to kind of skip-de-doo into it here. So we get everything to the very edge. If you want a little more prim and proper work, you can get your bolster under your knees. Sand on the outer right hip if you want. But I'm going to focus on the inversion to the end right now as our main end pose. Take the leg crossing to the other side. If a little Baddha Konasana in between is nourishing, take feet together, knees open for a few seconds. This is nice for the SI joint. And then bring your knees up, left leg over right, knees to the right. Now, if you're not using your bolster on the first side, it's probably not going to be the smartest move to all of a sudden add it. So if it's not under the knee and it's kind of there, that's fine. But you're pin and stretching through that exterior left hip. So feel that cross layer of the hip stretching from the outer zone of the hip to that whole rotator, that outer band on the left leg. Now visualize that these bands, these outer bands, just notice that they tend to be pretty grippy. We're gonna slide our way to the wall so we drain out that space, okay? Could be a good prep for walking later. So bring your knees back to center. And then if you can, you're gonna try to sneak in, getting your bolster to the wall. Sneak it over there. If you're gonna do chair shoulder stand, that's okay. If you're gonna choose to do legs up the wall, you might find this is a kind of an easy symmetrical way to go into this final shape, is to be on the ground and stay. So I'm gonna slide towards the wall. Now when I roll to my side, you're gonna take a blanket in, and I want you to use a belt for this today. So you're gonna get your tush up to the wall and swing the legs up. And you wanna use your sand first on the soles of your feet, and then your belt around your legs so that you are not using any muscle tension. You're not creating muscle tension to have the legs up. You're not gripping. So the belt takes that tension away. The belt does that for Baddha Konasana when we're on our back with our knees out, feet together. It does the same thing, right? It reduces that muscle tension, so there's less atrophy. So you're going to use the belt at the very top of the thigh area where the thigh is the thickest, right? Thicker part of the leg. Keep it pretty tight, not so tight you have now lost feeling and you're tensing up because it hurts. Just under that, right? So you can maybe slip your finger. That's about the best tightness that I've been taught, is you can slip a finger from the belt to the skin, but that's it. It's pretty firm. And then back of the pelvis on the bolster, so you have the back arch, the lungs open, and the lower lobes of the lungs are the doorway right into the lower rungs of the ribs, are the doorway to your lungs. So let the bones center, feel your arms open, head relaxed, supported into cactus arms, and let your eyes close. If you happen to use glasses, they're off, and if you have an eye pillow, it's on, and the brain zone turns its way all the way down to 0. And let the mind, the memory of the experience rest for a few moments here. Cycle the breath as the inhale is also the movement of the body, and the exhale is the letting go. Right? Not just of the life force, but it invites the next breath in. So feel how you empty your lungs all the way to their ends. Explore the in-breath. Empty the lungs. Feel your level of concentration to be of body, moving the diaphragm, and of the pressure in the lungs. So on our back, it's quite a bit of strength training for our lungs and the diaphragm, but it's also soothing for the abdominal organs, right? They're turned upside down, reversing gravity's downward pull. So it's like giving them a little bit of circulation and vitality just by flipping them, and having a change of scenery would be the difference here. Now for a moment longer, noticing your roots, maybe your feet, if they have sand on them. Let that base of your body be replenished by recirculation. Now when you bend your knees, if you're at the wall, I'll lead you through that. You're going to take the belt off of the legs, and then you'll simply start to bend your knees and then shift your legs away from the wall, enough that you can reach up to your sand, find the bend, put that away, and then bring your feet together, your knees apart. This is important to have the feet close together and the knees moving open. Doesn't have to be very far, right? As far as the feet will go down comfortably for your hips. Knowing the farther they do go down, you will likely create a little more stretch through this groin, inner leg, the lymph, right? There's a lot of lymph drain going on in that part of our body. So many lymph nodes. So it feels pretty boggy usually, like, a little achy. So let that circulation steep for a few seconds. Give yourself this extra few moments to steep the groins. It does happen when the legs are up as well, but this is like that kind of final flush. Can't you hear that internal flush? Bring your knees back towards each other, and then feel that scooping of the knees in and that stretching of the back muscles all the way through the sitting bones. And then at your own comfort, you're going to rock the knees side to side and then roll to any side that works towards coming up to sitting. Take a few moments to arrive, to sit for connection to the community that's here with us, right? There's many heartbeats in this practice right now. Feel the hands open, feel the shoulders lifting and descending down the back, and arriving at a connection with your hands together in front of the heart space, bowing your brain down to your heart center, surrendering here. And feel the momentum from your practice moving into your day, that stillness, that quietude, reflection, and honoring, breathing in and breathing out. Namaste. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's see where we're at here. We're here. We're still here.